Saturday night NFL playoffs on NBC. This is Brad Powers in the pregame.com studios just off the Vegas Strip. We're talking NFC wildcard action, Detroit at Seattle.
You're betting the total in this one. Which way are you going?
We're going over the total. That's right. Take the over in this one. Let's talk about this Seattle defense as my number one factor here. Quite frankly, they're not the same without safety Earl Thomas out of the lineup. With him in the lineup in the first 12 games of the season, they allowed 16.1 points per game. That's arguably top 5 in the National Football League. With him out of the lineup the last 4 games, they've allowed 24.5 points per game. That's mediocre at best in the National Football League, and that includes a game against the feeble Los Angeles Rams offense where they held them to just 3 points, and obviously that's Jared Goff starting at quarterback. So this Seattle defense, not the same. That's why we like the over.
Talk to me about why Thomas is so important to this team.
Yeah, let's talk about the safety position in general. A lot of times it's the quarterback of the back end of the defense. They're calling the plays, making sure everyone's in the right position. And Thomas specifically, not only a great safety, arguably maybe even the best safety in the National Football League. And I just mentioned this a couple weeks ago, Minnesota safety Harrison Smith not getting enough credit in the betting markets. He's out of the lineup with Minnesota. Their defense tanks. He comes back in the lineup week 17. They perform much better. I think the same could be said of this safety Earl Thomas.
And I'm very worried about the Detroit defense. Really bad spot here. 3 straight games. They need 1 win to win the division. They lose all 3. Maximum effort. Don't get it done. And now look what the schedule makers have done to them. Monday Night Football against the Cowboys. Don't get it done. Now, Sunday Night Football against the Packers. Lose that game. Now they got to wheel back Saturday Night Football at Seattle, have to fly across the country, 3 games, 12 days.
No question about it. And you would think that intensity wouldn't be an issue here. It's a playoff game. It's win or go home. But I think fatigue is the key word here. We started to see some fatigue in that Detroit defense, especially when they're playing Dallas and Green Bay at the end of the season.
Fatigue defenses give up more yardage. They give up more points. Your second key handicap.
Let's talk about this Detroit defense. I think they're vastly overrated. They basically stifled weak opposition this year, and they had a heck of a lot of it. They played a weak competition, and they only allowed 19.5 points per game when they're playing non-playoff teams. But in those 5 games, when they stepped up to the plate and played some playoff teams, that defense allowed 29 points per game.
And look at the Cupcake City schedule, middle of the year. Houston, Jacksonville, and the Minnesota Vikings twice. No wonder they were able to hold those teams down.
Yeah, listen, you're exactly right. But let's talk a positive for this Detroit offense. Obviously, it's really hampered them here recently is the finger injury to Matthew Stafford, their quarterback. But I like what I've seen. There's been some progression. 6 points against the Giants. That was awful. 21 points against Dallas. And then last week against the Green Bay Packers, 24 points. Threw for 347 yards in that one. A couple of touchdown passes. Keep in mind, prior to that, he had 0 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions in the previous 2.5 games.
Just a little fortunate to get that final touchdown pass in that game, but he's absolutely improving from the finger injury. Let's make it official.
Yeah, let's make this official. Going over the total, Seattle's defense, quite simply, isn't the same without safety Earl Thomas. They allow more than a touchdown more per game with him out of the lineup. Plus, Detroit's defense is overrated. They've stifled weak opposition, but when they've stepped up and faced playoff teams, they've allowed 29 points per game. Add it all up, and we expect a lot more points in this one. More videos at pregame.com.